The NASCAR Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost enables you to double your bet with no interest. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge to get started today.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you asked me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
To another episode of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez, and we are fresh off the heels of an all-star weekend that, Cody, listen, for all the pomp and circumstance from this weekend, I got to tell you, as a race fan, loved every single second of it. Loved all of the throwbacks, even loved having DW back in the booth for a little while. But I'm here to tell you, Cody, that if there's going to be racing in North Wilkesboro in the future, there probably needs to be some back to the drawing board type of thing. Not going to say I didn't enjoy the racing, but let's just call it like it was. It was mediocre at best.
That was a good old fashioned ass whooping, I believe is how Kyle Larson put it at the end, and he was very correct. That's, I mean, if you're one of those people out there that doesn't like stage racing, can I present the case for why we have stage racing? Because I think you saw it. If you're a person out there that doesn't like all the gimmicks of the All-Star race, which we commented on, this was a race without gimmicks. So maybe stage racing isn't a bad thing. Maybe gimmicks aren't a bad thing. We were only a caution flag away from that being very different ending to the race. I think the weekend was great. I think that everything about it was good. The truck race was pretty good. Of course, Larson won both races, but yeah, it did kind of end up being a little bit of a stinker, but that is racing. Like, if you look back at how racing is on this track specifically, I think it was Jeff Bodine had the entire field a lap down during a race. Like, it's been that way before. This track's known for long green flag runs, and so that's just kind of how it is. But I think if we'd have gotten a caution or two, that things might have been differently. You have all 36 cars, 40 cars out there, might be a totally different story, right? You don't have all the back marker cars that are always spinning out and losing control and having mechanical issues that bring out caution flags. Like, it was just 22, 23, would they have 23, 24 of the best drivers out there, right? That were in this race. So you've got to look at that part of it. Not as many cars, less things to happen. It did kind of end up being a little bit of a runaway. I think that the tire, and I haven't listened to the full thing, but I was listening to a little bit of Denny's podcast here this afternoon, and he was mentioning, like, he thinks the tires, that Goodyear alone can fix the racing without changing anything else. Like, I do think that there are things they can do to fix it, change the tire. You know, if the rules would have been if this was a longer race, you'd have more strategy. If you have the stage breaks in there, like, if there's more caution flags, things change. And really, strategy kind of won this race because the three guys who finished first, second, and third all pitted at the first caution, right? And then things just continued to break their way, and that's kind of how it ended up being. So I think when you look at it as a whole, it was a great weekend. Good to come back to NASCAR's roots. As far as, like, just the pictures of what the track looked like, what the facilities look like. I don't know if you saw, I think maybe Jeff Gluck tweeted it out, but the picture of what the media center today is and what it had been left as the former infield care center. It was like straight out of like a zombie horror movie. Like, it was that bad where it was just like gurneys were, and just like looked like a scary movie basically to what it looks like today. Pretty impressive. And just, for the city, all the signs, welcome back racing. And I mean, these people have been wanting this track to come back for a long time. There's some people out there, well, they lost it for a reason. Like, they did, yes, but the reason isn't the same reason. It wasn't bad racing or anything like that. So I think it was a great weekend overall. Ends up being a little bit of a stinker, yes, because Larson kind of runs away with it. We saw some really great racing in the open race, though. A lot of beating and banging. And we cashed some bets on that one, so that's good. But overall, I was impressed with the weekend. Again, you're going to have races like that. Larson's a great driver. Like, we saw this with Jimmy Johnson. We saw this with Jeff Gordon. We saw this with Dale Earnhardt. We saw this with Richard Petty. Look back at the history of the sport. There's always been these races where these really good guys just own a race, and Larson owned this race. And that's just how it worked out.
And he can't make any apologies for it either, because again, he's got the skill, he had the car, he had the right strategy. I mean, everything lined up for it. And like you said, man, the people don't realize now, the fans of the sports that have just started watching in the era of the stage breaks, what it was like to watch a race with no stage breaks, what it was like to just run fuel mileage, what it was like to run tire wear, right? And that was the way that you gauged whether or not you came into the pits, and how long it was going to take you to maybe undercut or just hang on for a caution on some of these tracks. And with North Wilkesboro, you're not going to get that caution. These guys, especially like you said, with only 20 some odd drivers, they didn't have to contend a lot. There was a couple of 3 wide and at one point, I think a 4 wide that we saw trying to shape up there. But by and large, it was all just single file, and it was a conveyor belt for most of that all-star race. So definitely, like I said, it was good for what it was. I think you got to go back to the drawing board if you're going to do it again. We'll continue to talk about it, though. We have to step away for a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue on with our discussion of the all-star race and, of course, break down our bets later on in the show. But let's tell you about EdgeBoost. Have you signed up for EdgeBoost yet? If not, you're missing out. EdgeBoost is the world's first bet now, pay later Visa card. Similar to buy now, pay later programs, EdgeBoost enables you to double your bet with no interest and pay back the advance over 4 equal weekly installments. That's right, 0% interest. Simply deposit funds into your account, and EdgeBoost will match the deposit so you can use twice the funds on any legal sports betting site. Edge is currently offering up to $2,500 in advances, up to $2,500 you can add to your bankroll. My EdgeBoost double down play of the day will probably be Kyle Larson for the rest of the season, because he's gotten red hot now. So doesn't even matter anymore. Just double down on it. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge to sign up today. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/edge. Must be 21 years or older to use. Only valid in legal gambling states. Problem gambling? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So for Kyle Larson, though, and it's funny because he did joke, that's an old school ass whooping. And really, essentially, when he's putting almost the entire field a lap down, it went to the strength of his car. But I think more than anything, I think this was echoed in the Discord as well, I was confused too why nobody else chose that strategy. There was only 3 cars that really took that approach to it. And I mean, everybody knows that tires are important on this track, right? I don't know why you gamble. You saw it in the open. You saw it in the heat races. You saw there was chunks of tire missing from, I don't remember whose car they pulled it off of, but like 3/4 of that tire was missing. There was only one small strip. So I don't know which crew chief all but 3 crew chiefs decided to make tires an important thing. And, obviously with Kyle Larson being as talented as he is, he drove up through the entire field. Like it wasn't even as if he was, started 10th and found his way. No, he started dead last and came up through the field and tore his way to a win that way. So again, I like to see good dominant racing, obviously. I mean, again, as somebody who plays, NASCAR on the video games too, when you feel good when you're racing up and lapping these cars, and then by the time you know it, like all but 8 cars are lapped. That's a cool feeling. Not as necessarily entertaining to watch from a fan standpoint, but I think it's a conversation we had with Shady over there, or Shady on the F1. I just call him Shady because Shady race. Shady on the F1 Gambling Podcast. As far as when you're in it, you don't appreciate it, but when you look back on it, you're like, wow, that was amazing. And I think it's kind of what we're going to look at this All-Star race and think back to it. This was the race itself. The All-Star race itself was kind of but if we look back on the dominant performance a couple of years from now, we're going to go, man, that was a dominant performance by Kyle Larson, putting on a clinic, whatever you want to call it, old school ass whooping. Like, that's what it was, and that's what we watched.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with I don't know why these guys didn't stop, especially because the 15-lap scuff thing, and that was part of Larson's strategy, was if we get cautions late, there's only one set of sticker tires in the second half of the race, but you can put on 15-lap old tires, and that could be an advantage. So I thought that was a really smart move. Obviously, it ended up not playing out that way. I think everybody thought there was going to be more cautions, and there just wasn't. And Cliff Daniels said he went back and watched a bunch of old races at North Wilkesboro, and something he had noticed was that they just went green. Like, there were long green flag runs. That's kind of what he expected, kind of what he played for. And they figured it out and hooked that car up. And yeah, again, just a dominating performance. But I kind of want to see. So there's an open date next year, right? Auto Club obviously is being whatever they might or might not be doing to that place. But most of the track's been sold, so they're not going to be racing on the 2-mile at this point, you wouldn't think. So there is an open date. I'd like to maybe see you move that date there, I guess, if you're, depending on what else is available. But I think that a full points race there might be more fun. You got the stages, longer time to, for guys to work on their car. Strategy might come into play. I think that would maybe be better than an all-star race. But I think at the same time, this could have easily flipped on its head. Like, if there's a caution with 10 laps to go, with 20 laps to go, somebody blows a tire, somebody spins out, something happens, then all of a sudden we end up in 3 overtimes, and this guy bumps Larson, and then this guy bumps that guy, and then it could have been we're that close to it being a totally different story. So that's what's always hard about that too, is that if that piece of cardboard that was on the track would have been spotted, then things could have been a lot different. So I don't know. There's a lot of money's been invested into this place. I think that with NASCAR and SMI's relationship, they're going to be coming back here, whether it's for the All-Star race. I mean, at this point, the All-Star race, other than the last 3 years, really has been mostly at Charlotte, which the racing had kind of gotten blah for a while, but in this new car, these 1.5 miles have been pretty damn good. So maybe you put it back there. I don't know, but I think that they will be back at North Wilkesboro either way. And I think that we could still be in for good racing. And I don't think one race, can determine, a track's entire future or whatever. You can't look at it that way. Plus, it was a shorter race. A lot of other factors going into it. Plus, they might repave it. Maybe when they repave it, they can do some things differently and have a second groove in there a little more. But this has been the short tracks we've seen for the most part lately. Like Richmond's kind of raced this way, Martinsville's kind of raced this way. The short tracks in this next Gen 7 car have just kind of looked this way in general, anyways.
I wonder if the spotters, especially, and then probably the crew chiefs, realized once Kyle was just knifing his way through the field that there wasn't anything to gain. Because, finishing second in this race did nothing for anybody. So to know that if you were going to be, a lap down and you were in 17th, why push it? Why make? Because it doesn't matter if you're 17th or second, honestly, because it doesn't matter. So you just tell the guy, listen, man, no one's going to make any road on Kyle Larson. Don't tear the car up. Just ride around.
Well, yeah, I think maybe you kind of save it too in case there's a caution late, because that, like I said live in the Discord, at one point Truex was 80-1 and he's in 12th. But I'm thinking, if we get a caution, of course Larson was minus 300 at that point live, and it's of course he's probably going to run away with this. It's going to finish how it ended up doing. But if there is that caution, that opens up the door. There's a pit, they come in, they nail a pit stop. He comes out up in 6th, and then there's 2 wrecks up in 1st and 2nd. Then all of a sudden he's right there. There was still a possibility that could have happened. We saw a couple guys pit. I think it was Byron and Bush. They came down and pitted. It didn't seem to do as much for them as it did for Larson. But maybe they thought more people would go if you catch a caution in the right time with that, right after they get themselves unlapped or something, might make a difference. there was still things going on. It didn't turn out that way. It ended up being a pretty clean race. Like I said, we didn't have Cody Ware out there. We didn't have, Chase Briscoe running last to cause a wreck, or Balicki. All these guys weren't out there racing. And we saw more accidents in the race that they were in. So, that's maybe to that point. So who knows?
Well, Busch was already like 2 laps down at that point, and he was
I guess he was just kind of.
Yeah, there was nothing he could do.
Out to lunch at that point.
We'll definitely talk about him in a second, but it was not a good day. But overall, again, it's just a matter of, you are absolutely right in your assessment as far as this race was the all-star race. Therefore, what we saw on the track was probably not indicative of what we would see if this was all out, all 36 cars, all racing for points, all with the stage breaks, with just the rules being what they are. Granted, I'm sure we'd see a lot of what we saw today, or this weekend rather, but yeah, I just think the racing would be different. And again, I'm not trying to take away from what we saw, because what we saw was spectacular. I mean, I very much enjoyed watching that track. I enjoyed getting to know that track. Obviously, I wasn't a fan when they were racing on this surface, but to just see it play out and to see it happen, it was kind of cool. And I think as a fan, that's what you can take away from it.
Yeah, and I think that being said, this weekend was a success. Like, the stands were packed, even for the truck. It's like everybody was there. That part of it was great. A lot of people showing up. Like I said, the whole town kind of rallying around it. You had all the guys come back, right? Richard Petty and Darrell Waltrip did Gentlemen Start Your Engines. They had won on that track so many times each. I think Petty's like 15 times, Waltrip's like 11, something like that. Crazy amounts of wins at that track. You had Larry Mack as part of the booth, right? He's won there multiple times as a crew chief. You brought back Darrell Waltrip on the call, which, by the way, he's like, 76, I think, at this point. Like, dude has not missed a beat. Still 100% amazing. Miss him in the booth. But you have, was it Evernham, I think, waved the green flag. He was the crew chief that had won the last time they were here. Gordon drove the pace car. He was the driver that won. Gordon ends up now in victory lane as partial car owner, whatever, president of Hendrick, whatever his title is, but as part of that team. So I think that all of the nostalgia, the NASCAR history coming back, still got the big Winston billboard there, and they redid the stands and stuff, but still made it look like like it did back in the day with the retro look and everything. So yeah, I think overall it was still a successful weekend, and that's just going to be racing sometimes. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't think that we need to say, "Oh, what a horrible race. We should never go back there." You're going to get runaway races, and back to, the Max Verstappen thing in F1, and we've seen it before with all these other guys in the past. Like, just respect the greatness you saw. Like, you saw probably the most talented driver possibly in the entire world jump in anything, anywhere, right? His 199th different track he's been on, I think they said. Insane. That guy has raced anywhere and everywhere, literally. And he just goes out there and does what he's good at. And probably maybe should have thought of that more, I guess, right? The dirt track part of this, where it's going to be the way they were fighting these cars, just crazy. But yeah, I think overall it was still a success and a good weekend for NASCAR.
I agree. All right, got to step away for another break. When we come back, we will go over the bets and talk about where we went right, where we went wrong, and what we would do different, which is nothing. But we'll talk about that after the break. Well, let's tell you about Shady Rays. Shady Rays is teaming up with SGPN for Shady May. Not only do you get an amazing 50% off, but you also have a chance to win $500. Shady Rays have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and so much more. Shady Rays have durable frames and extremely clear optics for all of your outdoor adventures. And if you lose or break a pair, even on day one, they told us that they're going to send you a brand new pair with no questions asked. If you don't love them, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. No risk when you shop with Shady Rays. The team has always got your back. And of course, for our international listeners, Shady Rays has got you covered as well with shipping to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. Go to shadyrays.com. Use the code SGPN for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. And remember, May is almost over, so make sure you take your receipt to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/shady for your chance to win the $500 Shady May contest. So the weekend began, Cody, with the Pit Crew Challenge, which was pretty spectacular and pretty fun to watch. All of these pit crews do their thing. And, for me, I kind of almost want them to do this every time because it feels as if, you definitely don't know what's going to happen, right? One jack slip, one slip on the pavement, and you go from first to, 25th, and it's just that quick. So to me, like I said, felt like a fantastic way to do it. I hope they do it for every All-Star race because
I think that should be how they set qualifying every week. Picker. No, I know that's obviously not going to happen, but I think it was great. It was amazing to watch. Again, you watch these guys shine. The 54 crew, after they laid it down, like you could tell they knew they laid down a fast one. They right away were excited. Then they're just over there sweating the whole time, like $100,000 on the line. Like if somebody beats you by a tenth of a second, 100th of a second, like you just lose $100,000 and you get nothing. Like they're over there sweating it out, and then they finally, the last car goes and doesn't beat them, and they win it. Just great to see. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was so exciting to watch that. I hope that the Pit Crew Challenge used to be a thing, and it didn't necessarily determine the lineup, but they had a trophy and all that stuff. And I believe I heard that there was a trophy that the team got, and it's going to be a rotating trophy. So that leads you to believe that they have to bring the trophy back next year and give it to the team that wins, which would be great. I think that's an awesome thing to do. So hopefully it's something that no matter where this goes or whatever, however else it morphs in the future, will continue to be part of it, because that was super exciting. And we got to bet on it, which was great. We covered that on the bonus bets episode on Friday morning that dropped. We dug to the ends of the earth and found some odds. Again, the bigger bucks maybe should do better next time, but I think it was Betfred had us covered on that. Got to sweat a couple out. We ended up missing them, the ones we gave out, but it was still a fun time.
Yeah, but you had said too in the Discord. Well, we said watch Gibbs. We just didn't really mean watch Gibbs.
When I said watch the Gibbs team, well, I meant the Gibbs team, I guess.
Well,
the Gibbs team.
What's crazy though is that yes, Gibbs obviously does that and is able to do the All-Star Open from the front, but it was Suarez and Buescher that benefited from the All-Star race proper, right? I mean, both of those guys started in the heat races in front, so it was like that 17 car, you don't normally see him qualify up front like that, but there he was. And then, of course, him and the 99 right there next to each other. That was definitely an element that you didn't expect to see. So, again, that's what that kind of
Well, and I mean, like we kind of talked about last week, like it does shake the field up, because in traditional qualifying, and I've never really understood why racing does it that way. Like, why do you put the fastest car first? Because they're the fastest car. Like, you don't want to punish them, and obviously then you'd have guys sandbagging qualify, but like that's why you got to come up with different ways to set lineups, and that's what was kind of great during COVID, where they had the inverts and stuff like that sometimes, like, or if you had a bad race, you had to start at the back the next time, like, and we still see that with the metrics sometimes, but it does put guys imagine if Kyle Larson would have started that all up front, like maybe everybody would have been 2 laps down, you know what I mean? Like, or maybe he doesn't get tires, somebody else in the back gets tires, and things end up different. So it changes the whole complex for sure. But I do think that was a great way to do it. Mixes things up. And there was, despite it being a lot of not passing, there was still plenty of passing. I mean, you watch Kyle Larson pass every single car in the field to get to the front before he ran away with it. So there was still that element to it as well. And there were some other guys that had some passing as well. Of course, it was tough. I'm not going to deny that. But still, overall, I think that all of that part of it was great.
I agree with you on that one. All right, so that did lead, of course, to the All-Star Open, which is where we opened our actual bets for the weekend. Hit a couple of good ones in this one. One I was pretty pissed off that didn't hit, but we'll get to that in a second. So, Corey, see, I'm just reading that again. Cody, start us off with where you started.
So I had Ford versus Chevy minus 110 for the open race. And my argument was basically, if anything happens to Josh Berry, this has a chance. A couple guys had a chance. Almirola probably had the fastest car. He just couldn't never quite get in position. McDowell for a minute had a chance to maybe be up there and beat these guys, but ended up being Berry, so this one didn't cash. But again, it was just more of a numbers game, right? You had all these other Fords up there, and Almirola and Priest were right there in third and fourth. Even JJ Yaley, shout out to him with the 6th place finish in the Open, mostly due to attrition, but he still finished there, so gotta give him that.
Indeed, you do. All right, my first bet. This is what pissed me off. I had Justin Haley over stinking Harrison Burton. Haley was a top 5 car, top 6 car, almost the.
This was easily the correct bet.
I mean, it was the correct bet. And unfortunately, he gets collected in a wreck, and we're done, and that's it, and that's the end of it. It was lap 58 with the 34th stinking McDowell and Gibbs.
Well, Gibbs ran McDowell up and then shot him to the top, and Haley was just wrong place, wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. Speaking of Gibbs, I had him at top 3 plus 140. That cashed. Also had him to win plus 400. How does Denny Hamlin get fined for race manipulation? And then Michael McDowell comes on the radio and says, get this fixed so I can go take care of this, or take care of him, or whatever he said. And then clearly holds up the 50, which is great. I love to see it. Not from a betting aspect, because obviously I lost this bet. And it cost me that bet, so thanks for that, Michael McDowell. But from a racing aspect, you love to see the payback, right? And but talk about race manipulation. Yikes.
Hey,
listen. How about some consistency, NASCAR?
You knew it was coming. You knew.
Oh, 100%. Oh, and then you thought it was coming a second time. It got back to him at the end, and it could have gone from, if McDowell's car would not have been so bad by the end that he just had no chance to even get in the way, he could have easily knocked Gibbs out of the race. And then if by some chance Gibbs happened to have beat Gragson in the fan vote, then Gragson doesn't make the definitely trickle down effect. Now, likely that wasn't the case, because I don't think Gibbs is that popular. But shout out to Gragson, by the way. He started a campaign a few weeks ago, and they covered it. But when I was at Kansas, there were signs all over the media center. I should have took a picture, but vote for vote for Noah as mayor of North Wilkesboro. There was signs everywhere. They were obviously just doing it at every track, the whole thing leading up to it. So that worked out well for him. I'm sad that Corey LaJoie did not make it, but he was pretty slow this weekend anyway. So
yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure.
Went great for him.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know that Gragson would have actually finished well enough to. I know obviously not to get in, but I don't know.
And he had all the damage too, so it was kind of. But again, good to see he gets punched in the face and fans rally around him.
I was going to say, but that's how he got popular. Is you punch Ross Chastain, you get the popular vote.
Right. He didn't even punch him. He got punched by him.
That's true. Well, yeah. Okay. You take a punch from Ross Chastain,
there you go.
and you get the vote. All right. I had AJ Allmendinger as a top 3 car, only because I was convinced that he could probably get it done. He couldn't get it done, but he did finish in 5th. If there was more attrition, if Ty Gibbs would have gone out, then I think we would have, if McDowell would have taken Gibbs out, I think that would have made AJ Allmendinger that much closer, obviously. But it was Almirola, Priest, those guys, they were both good. Both of those Stewart Haas cars were good all day long. So I don't know that AJ was going to crack into that at all either. He started 10th, wound up 5th, but yeah, just definitely not the fastest car for AJ Allmendinger. And then, of course, I had young Josh Berry to win this race. And that was in question for a majority of the time. I mean, obviously, him and Gibbs both started up front, and it was literally a battle between those two. I mean, obviously, outside of Justin Haley, who did lead a lap in this, it was all Berry, it was all Gibbs. Gibbs even led the most laps out of it, 53. But Josh Berry ended up getting around Gibbs when Gibbs and McDowell had their little instance. And yeah, sure enough. Oh, no. So it was Gibbs, or Berry got around Gibbs when Gibbs and I think it was Almirola, right?
It was when McDowell held him up.
That's
how Berry got the lead. Yeah.
That's
why McDowell cost me my fucking Gibbs bet. Dick. No, just kidding. But no, it was, it was great. And yeah, whatever. I like to see, I enjoy that kind of stuff, the retaliation and watching the guy. I mean, maybe not to the Matt Kenseth level of a few years ago with Joey Logano. That might be taken a little far, but to a degree, getting in a guy's way or, ruining the guy who ruined your day. I think it's great to see. So I did like that part of it. But yeah, I mean, we called that the Open right very much. We expected Gibbs and Berry to be two of the best cars. They were fastest in the pit crew challenge as well, which was part of that because they obviously are on top tier teams, right? And so then they get up front, and as long as things went their way, which it did, they end up transferring into the main event, which was how we saw it going. So yeah, positive, solid betting card for the Open, and yeah, have a good night. We'll see you later.
I mean,
but hey, we did say go into this weekend taking it a little easy because who knows what we're gonna get, and that's probably was a good strategy.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did say it. We did say that it was going to be Gibbs and Berry, and we basically that's why we split the votes between them and called it good. So obviously we were on that part of it. All right, move to the All-Star race proper. And I got to tell you, there was a couple of these. Well, I mean, I only hit one out of the three.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much
stupid.
Yeah.
So I had Joey Logano over Tyler Reddick. Reddick did not do shit first of all, they had a penalty, so he had to start very bad in the heat race. He didn't do shit in the heat race. Joey Logano looked very good. I think he finished second in his heat, started like third in the race. He's running up front. Then he gets the speed. Well, first of all, Reddick does the tire deal early. So that's really I don't think the Tyler Reddick would have been anywhere in this event if he didn't do the tire deal at 15 laps like Bubba and Larson did. That's what got him into third. So I don't know. I did miss on Joey being as good as he ended up being. I expect him to be better than he ended up being, but I do think even with his 10th place finish would have been better than Reddick had it not been for. And Joey fought back to 10th after a speeding penalty too. No, he had a loose wheel was his. So that was very harmful, hurt him unfortunately, but I still think this was a good bet. Sucks to lose it how it did, but again, that's how it goes.
I mean, look, there were only 2 cautions at all in this, and one of them was that competition caution that they threw at 100. So, there was one caution for cause.
I don't even remember what that was so early in the race. What was that caution?
So the one for cause.
Stenhouse spun out, I think.
Stenhouse, yeah, the 43 and the 44 got together. Yeah. That
was
my
next head-to-head, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. Exactly. Go ahead and cover that one then.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Yeah, so I had Stenhouse over Jones. They obviously get together on lap 15, and then it was just horrible news for Stenhouse after that. He finished dead last. He was still running at the end, but yeah, things did not go his way. And Jones, actually, a very impressive day. He ends up in 8th place, which shocking for how those legacy cars, how Jones has run lately. I was very, very surprised by that. I didn't expect him to do that good. And Stenhouse, with the consistency we've seen from him lately, as good as the team's been, I thought we would see something better. But yeah, swing and a miss on that one.
Stenhouse probably saw Larson more times than most of the field. Larson kept lapping around him. Yeah. It's like, oh, there's the fight.
There he goes again. Oh, there he goes again.
Yeah, no, that was frustrating. And definitely when the 2 cars get together, that's the end of the deal. I had Kyle Busch over Ryan Blaney. Can we just not talk of this one at all? I don't even know if Kyle Busch was in the All-Star race. He finished just above Ricky Stenhouse Jr., couple of laps down at the end of the day. Started 14th, ended the night 22nd. And I mean, Kyle Busch got on and was like, I'm fucking wrecking all over the place. Like, this is not good.
His radio is absolutely outstanding when things are not going his way. He hates his entire life while he is struggling in those cars, and yeah, didn't go well for him.
No, not even, like I said, just did not even show up.
Man, Blaney, another solid finish, another 6th place. Like, I know we can't bet on him to win, but he is just the king of getting these good runs and not winning.
Yeah, and again, it's not as if I didn't think Blaney could get it done. It's just he hadn't been good lately.
Right.
So
yeah, it might be something to watch with Blaney going forward too. Is he's getting decent finishes. He's just never necessarily the top guy, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch for sure. So keep an eye on Ryan Blaney, especially this week. That car you tweeted out, or you gave us a tweet for. Ooh, look at that beautiful car.
Yeah, if you have not seen Ryan Blaney's car this week at the Coke 600, it's Body Armor, which their paint schemes are always golden, by the way. Two of my favorite sponsors. Maybe that's why I like Ryan Blaney so much. Big Menards guy. Love going to Menards for all the home improvement stuff. That's my top store always. And Body Armor is delicious. if you're watching on YouTube, drinking a body armor right now. But it's the cherry lime one, which is like green and red, almost like camouflage looking. It's a beautiful car, so definitely check it out.
I'm going to be going to the grocery store later today. I may look out for a body armor of that flavor and patronize them for the
hashtag not a sponsor.
Hashtag not a sponsor, but could very well be.
Hey, hit us up. I might just, like I said, I got one right now. I'm drinking Body Armor Light, which, by the way, their light flavors just as good as their original flavors. You can't even tell the difference in the light and stuff. So peach mango, it's delicious, but they're all good.
Cody will wear any of your.
This is my this is my plea to Body Armor. I have back here on if you're watching on YouTube, I have all these diecast cars. There's a Ryan Blaney section back there with multiple Body Armor cars on that as well.
I'm telling you right now, we are set for a sponsorship. Body Armor, get at us.
Hit us up, Body Armor.
All right. My next one was Chris Buescher over Austin Dillon. Here's the funny thing about this one, and we've talked about this so many times when we talk about the show. It just feels like every single time we have a head-to-head, they end up together, right? Well, Chris Buescher was running up front for a better part of the day. I mean, he started second, right? Looked good. He was in the top 5 for a better part of this race, and then, of course, all hell broke loose with the tire strategies, and then kind of a bad pit stop after the caution. But he was still running within the top 10. So it was like a pretty good deal, where Austin Dillon was nowhere to be found, literally riding around the back almost all. He started 4th, but dropped like a rock, right? Just was not the car to beat. Well, by the end of this, Chris Buescher finishes in 16th. Austin Dillon finishes in 17th. And this was because Chris Buescher fell like 4 or 5 positions within the last 20 laps or so. It was crazy to watch. I was like, oh, we're safe. And then I see Buescher slide, and I'm like, oh, shit.
That's always how it works. You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, he's got him by 4 spots. And then you look away and then you look back and you're like, oh shit, he's about to catch him. What's going on?
Yeah. And we're lucky that the last few laps, like, because as soon as I heard, I think it was DW say, and everybody's got a gap between them now. No one's bumpered him. I was like, oh, thank God. Because with 2 laps to go, if this was one position battle the other way, I would have just threw my entire laptop in the water. It would have been done.
That's funny. Yeah. Again, I think you had the right side of this. Buescher seemed to be the better car. Got hung on the outside of one of those restarts and just dropped like an anchor. But
that's what it was. Yep.
Yeah, still ended up winning the head-to-head. So props to you on that. I will say Larson was the favorite. They did mention on the TV broadcast the favorite has only won 1 race this season, which is still an interesting thing. I guess Larson on short tracks this year is where you bet him because he's owned all the short tracks. But he's found so many ways to lose so many races. But he's so good. He's a tough guy to know when to pull the trigger because he's going to be the favorite almost every week. I mean, that's just how it is at this time and age. But he's not always winning, so it's tough to know when to bet on him. The short track angle of things might be the one to look at the most because that's where he's been getting it done this year. I had Denny Hamlin 12-1. And Joey Logano 16-1. I think there was great value on both these guys. Again, when you're talking about this condensed of a field of just the best guys, like I feel, especially with no track history or anything, I felt like going into this weekend, it was completely wide open. You didn't know who was going to qualify well with the pit stops. You didn't know with the heat races how things would shake out with, tire strategy and stuff that came into play later. I mean, had you gotten Bubba or Tyler Reddick, their odds were definitely a little longer. And had Larson not just completely run away with it, they were right there on that same strategy as well. So I don't feel like either of those guys were bad picks necessarily. Neither of them really showed up. Talked about Joey's struggles. He ended up in 10th. And Denny, just all the JGR cars, so uncharacteristically not good. Ty Gibbs, best finishing JGR car in the All-Star race, Rod. That's I'd like to see the odds on that because that would have been crazy, but they all finished kind of together there, I guess. Gibbs in 9th, and then it was Bell, Hamlin, Truex in 12th, 13th, and 14th. But not a JGR day, despite the 2311 Toyotas finding their way up front. But again, more strategy related. I don't know. Chase Briscoe, nice solid 4th place. Said not to fade him this week. I cannot. When we get to short tracks later in the season, as he continues to be shit on these 1.5 miles, I cannot wait to, because we're going to get some real juicy odds on him to get good finishes, I think. And that's when you're going to have to just hammer it, because he's good on these short tracks for sure.
Well, it's the fact that he doesn't have to have good long run speed as far as,
They they don't have the big speed on the big tracks, I guess. I don't know.
It's all right. Let the books sleep on him. We'll scoop him up when we need to.
We'll be fading him again this week, though, because it's a mile and a half again.
Yeah, for 600 miles, no endurance. I don't think so. All right. Well, I had Martin Truex Jr. What was he, 12-1 when I gave him out, and there's just nothing to Martin Truex this weekend. It was frustrating. What did he started the race 12th, right? He finished his heat race in it was 6th place. He finished his heat race in. So again, it wasn't as if he had a lot of speed. It didn't look like he was going to be good. And when we got to the race itself, he was hanging around that mid-pack the whole day. There was no moving up for him. I did not even once think that he was going to end up winning this race. So I did not get excited at all for it. I was just hoping that the head-to-heads would go just to bail us out. But yeah, I mean, once Kyle Larson started knifing his way through the field, I knew we were done. I knew there was no way anybody else was going to win this race.
Again, if we got a late caution, things would have been so different. But it's not how it worked out, and that's how it goes. We brought the cautious approach to this one, I think, for good reason. In the Open, I think we talked about on the podcast that it felt like we had more of a betting advantage in that race based on the competition, based on who was in it, based on what equipment they were in. We did pretty well on that one. So I think that it pretty much worked out kind of how we expected to, as far as predictable and then unpredictable. I guess that the favorite wins, so you could say that's predictable, but whatever.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, we were there for some good racing, and we got some good racing. I mean, I know there's a lot of folks that still are going to leave this all-star race with a bad taste in their mouth because of the lack of excitement. And this just goes to a deeper conversation, which we'll have it at another time. But as far as look, what do you value more? Do you want all the action-packed racing? Do that stage racing provides the bunched-up fields? Or do you want them to just race and see what happens? What do you value more? What do you consider good racing? Because if you like to see the field get lapped, then this was your race. Or if you like to see head-to-head battles that every lap matters and there's too wide racing the whole time, stage racing is what you get, right? You got to pick what you want. Can't everybody.
Yeah, and how many times have we been pissed off about overtime this year? Where it's cost us so much. And of course, the one race we don't get it right before overtime, that's the one that doesn't go to overtime, of course. But it is, you could make an argument either way, but I do think that this highlights how the stage racing keeps these races closer, how it keeps strategy in there. And again, had this race gone, 400, 500 miles, it might have been a completely different story. There might have been more strategy calls. There might have been more action. If we had 36 cars out there instead of 23 or whatever, it could be a big difference. So again, I think it was great for what it was. And yeah, we get to move on to the greatest weekend in racing coming up here.
Amen. All right. Well, there was an actual points paying race on this track earlier in the weekend. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the truck race when we come back. But I want to thank you all out there who have been watching on YouTube and have been following our journey through YouTube. But we see the loyal posters, we see the loyal commenters, and we love you all for that very much. We appreciate you almost as much as you appreciate us. Probably more, actually. Let's go with more. We appreciate you more. We love it. Continue to like, continue to subscribe, continue to hit that bell, continue to comment to make that YouTube algorithm recognize that we are one of your favorite programs to watch on a weekly or daily basis. So yeah, continue to do all those things, and we will continue to provide content for you to consume.
Hey everybody, if you play fantasy football, especially in auction leagues,
or you're a whiskey fan.
Yes, exactly. Check out the Sports Gambling Podcast fantasy football channel show, Old Fashioned Football.
Coming to you every Tuesday morning, give us a listen. We'll bring you the latest fantasy football data, including
the injury report,
studs and duds,
waiver wire targets,
and suggested fab.
Market movers. After all, we are the Marks.
He is my hubby.
And she's J Mark's wifey.
And we're bringing all this to you while drinking an old fashioned and giving you our honest review of a different whiskey every week.
All that and more. Hop on over, give us a listen. Come for the football, stay for the whiskey.
This ad's almost done.
Going once, going twice.
Sold.
Kyle Larson wins a race in North Wilkesboro. Stop me if you've heard this one before. It's a same refrain, but a different race. Of course, it was the Tyson 250 for the trucks. They ran 250 laps around this. Now they kept saying on the broadcast that it's like a half a mile, 0.5 something, but I'm seeing 0.625 on this, so I'm going to stick with what I've got. But yeah, Kyle Larson, this wasn't even a race. 138 laps that he led. Like, and plus, listen, cautions was the name of the day for this.
What,
there were
80 caution laps.
Wow, that 81 caution laps,
Yeah.
12 cautions for 81 caution laps. So not almost half of this race was run under caution.
Yeah, see, a full field. Things
Full
could have been
field.
totally different.
Yeah. So,
But this was, yes, Larson led 138 laps. I get that. But there were different points where different guys, I mean, Heim led 75 laps himself. Carson Hocevar looked really fast and looked like he could compete for a while. Once Larson got up there and started to just kind of take it away, he did take it away, but it was still, this one was a little more racy, in my opinion. I mean, low bar because it wasn't very racy in the All-Star race, but there was more action in this one for sure.
yeah, I mean, there were 6 lead changes throughout this, and it swapped between, like you said, Heim, Hocevar, Byron grabbed a couple for a little while. Larson and Bubba, even Bubba Wallace got up front for a few laps there. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. There was a lot more lead changes in this than there were in the All-Star race proper. But, you know, again, it's cautions really killed this race, and I feel like it's really what made it a whole lot more frustrating for us, especially as bettors, because it sort of took some of the stuff we had right off the board, you know, unfortunately. But I think we still did good overall. We kind of nailed some of this and got some good bets in. But yeah, like I said, overall, this race, it was everything I wanted it to be from a fan standpoint of watching them on there. I feel like the trucks could get around this track. Well, they actually could pass. Granted, took the bumper to pass a few times. But that's
short track racing.
Right? So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it took a lot of skill for these guys to get around. Now, I'd be curious to see what this race would be like without the Cup regulars. But, you know, again, that's just something for them to look forward in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So first up for me, got absolutely hosed on this one. I had Corey Heim over Bubba Wallace. Heim was the better driver all day long. He won stage 1, 4th in stage 2. Bubba was not in the top 10 in stage 1. He was 9th in stage 2. Heim led 75 laps. Bubba found himself up there at the end. After, what did he stayed out, right? He stayed out with 15 laps to go or something like that, or 20, maybe it was like 25, 35 laps to go. Stayed out, took the lead, and couldn't hold him off forever. That's where he got his 13 laps led, but that's when guys started taking him over. But Corey Heim finishes 6th, Bubba in 5th. I feel like this is a good call. Again, all over the Corey Heim train. Again, so close in a couple of things. He looked very good, very fast. Just didn't quite pay out at the end. Again, these head-to-head separated by 1 spot, Rod. Came up on the wrong side of this one.
Yeah, it was frustrating too, because Bubba Wallace, if he would not have stayed out, then it would not have been a factor in this at all. And you're right, Corey Heim, much, much faster truck all day long, obviously. And that does kill you too. Strategy is just a part of this as anything else. So it doesn't matter if you're the fastest truck for 3/4 of the day. If you stay out and you hold your ground, that could happen to you.
Yep.
All right, I had Carson Hocevar over Nick Sanchez. This one was perfect. Hocevar led 16 laps in this race. He finished 4th. Nick Sanchez finished in 30th position. He started 20th. He got caught up. I mean, he was so many laps down at that point. He only ran 213 total laps in this. So definitely not a good day for that 2 truck at all. But for Carson Hocevar, again, what I take away from this is we got to watch out for him now. He's making a name for himself.
Another guy on short tracks to keep your eye on, because seems like this style of track, he just continues to show. I mean, of course, his one win so far is on 1.5 miles, but he continues to show up and look fast. He looked really good. He looked like a truck that was fast enough that he could have run with Larson and stayed up there with these guys. Things didn't quite work out at the end, but he had a fast truck throughout the day. So definitely something you're going to have to keep an eye on. So great call by you on this one. Again, a little bit lucky with Sanchez going out, but they weren't even really that close in comparison before that. I think Hocevar was definitely the better car. So it is nice when the other guy wrecks out so you don't have to worry about him as much. Speaking of wrecking out, I had Zane Smith. What a rough weekend for Zane Smith. I had him in top 5, plus 120. This seemed like just an amazing opportunity to get plus money on the best driver and the best truck to get a top 5. Ends up failing truck for tech 3 times. Isn't allowed to qualify. That hurt him. Bad starting spot. Fought his way up through the field a little bit. Then I think he ended up with a speeding penalty, didn't he? He ended up with a speeding penalty. He got sent to the back again because he had come up. He didn't lead any laps, did he? No, but
no, he didn't lead any laps. No.
He was up near the front. I think he had gotten all the way up to 2nd or 3rd at one point.
He was 3rd at the end of stage 2.
Yeah, so he was up there, right? And it gotten things figured out, no problem. Did exactly how we saw this all going. And then the speeding penalty sends him to the back. Wrong place, wrong time. Gets caught up in one of those wrecks. Ends his day. So yeah, sad day. This one, plus money, should have been. And it was working out perfectly, too. He had fought his way up there. Looked just fine. And then, of course, the penalty. And that'll kill you.
Everything's important. Everything's important. Pits, all of that. There's 3 phases in football, right? Offense, defense, special teams. There's all those factors in NASCAR that make it all. You miss on one, you could kill your day, and that's exactly what happened to Zane. I was so sad for him. Sad to watch him go down like that. All right, I had Grant Enfinger over Corey Heim. Obviously, we talked about how Heim was the more dominant truck anyways all day long. Heim finishes in 6th. Grant Enfinger, kind of a crazy day for him. It was an up and down type of an event. He started 7th, but was sort of just all over the place in the lineup for the day. He did wind up finishing finally in 10th place, but that was because of cautions, and that was because of him being able to sort of scoot his way back up through the field. He was not anywhere to be found in the top 10 at the end of stage 1, and he did work his way up to 7th in stage 2. But again, there was a lot of jockeying around for him. He was getting shuffled back and forth. And he got around William Byron at one point. And so, yeah, for Grant Enfinger, it was not as quite a solid day and a consistent day as Corey Heim. And this one just definitely wasn't going to cash from the start.
Yeah. Again, why you got to fade Heim, Rod? Jeez, he's fast.
Not bad. But I told you it wouldn't, as long as Heim finished over Bubba and Enfinger finished over Heim, then we were good.
Exactly. Yeah. I had Stuart Friesen over Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes looked absolutely horrendous this entire race. Things did not start out well for Friesen. He had started in 33rd, but much like Smith, had found his way up to 6th by the end of stage 2, having a decent run. He ends up settling for 13th. Rhodes ended up getting caught up in one of those wrecks that ended his day. I think he only ran 202 laps, so didn't even get the full race in, but he looked really, really bad before that. I don't know what is going on in that 99 camp. I know they switched crew chiefs this offseason with Rich Lucius going over to Haley Deegan's truck. I don't know if that's been a big part of this, but been a pretty rough season for Ben Rhodes. So going to be interesting to continue to watch that going forward. But Stuart Friesen did easily cash over Ben Rhodes at minus 110.
Yes, he did. All right, this one easily cashed as well. Although I wish I would have gone lower on this number, but I didn't have the balls to pull the trigger. Winning truck under 35.5. We got that at plus 115. And of course, it was Kyle Larson coming in first place in that 7 truck. But I will say that you look at like Bubba Wallace was up there for a little bit. Heim was up there for a little bit. Those guys could have easily pulled that away and cash his bet as well. So there was 3 good chances for this one to cash, and thankfully Kyle Larson made it happen and cashed the winning number, which, by the way, continues my streak of pretty good calls on the winning cars and trucks numbers, huh?
Man, Rod, you're the number god. Again, not arguing with Rod when he gives out these numbers. He knows what he's talking about. You've found a niche handicapping the number game.
I think that's all I'm going to do from now on. I'm just going to give out the winning
Just
cars.
whatever number bets are out there, Rod's just going to give you all those.
That's it. I figure I should just give you
Hey.
stick to what you know, right?
Hey, if it wins, there's no reason not to do it, right?
This is true. Yeah.
I had Christian Eckes over Bubba Wallace. Again, I wasn't picking on Bubba. I figured he'd have an okay day, but it was plus money, plus 100. Expected Eckes to be fast. Eckes was at times a little bit fast, I guess. Maybe-ish. I don't really know. It's just, yeah. He ended up being the last car, I think, on the lead lap, 25th. Or maybe he wasn't even on the lead. I don't know. But things did not go well. He finished 25th. Bubba finished 5th, so not even close. I have nothing else to say about this one.
Yeah, it was definitely a better day. Again, but Bubba's day was made better by the fact that he stayed out. It wasn't, I don't know that it would have been the same had he not. And
I mean, he still would have beat Eckes because Eckes was 25th, but agreed, I don't think that Bubba was a 5th place truck all day for sure. I think that strategy played into that, which, again, props to them for hitting that, but I think that it necessarily wasn't bad to think he wasn't going to do that great.
No, sir. All right. I had Byron I had Byron over Larson. I skipped over that one because I didn't even want to talk about it. Byron over Larson. That one didn't work. Larson obviously found his way up, but I mean, look,
plus
Byron,
money
take
in a
shot.
better truck. Byron is in a better truck. It just Larson is Larson, and Byron had a not great weekend.
No, not at all.
Again, a plus money. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It just obviously Larson ends up running away with both these races, but things could have easily gone the different way for him. I mean, if you just look at it as anytime Kyle Larson's on any track except for a super speedway in any car, you should just bet on him to win everything, right? Because he's the best, obviously. And so when he does come out and dominate or win, it's like, well, is that surprising? No, but how many times have we seen it where that doesn't happen? And that's why you have to bet against him sometimes and why you can't just take him every week, because he doesn't always get it. When he does, nobody's surprised. It's not. And I said that in the Discord before Sunday night. Somebody had asked about Larson, and I said he's either going to win this or he's going to wreck out. Like, it's going to be one or the other. I think he's going to wreck out. I faded him, which was obviously a horrible decision, but that's just kind of how it goes for him. Like, he either finishes top 5 or wins, really, or he's not anywhere close because he wrecks out at some point. We've seen him be overly aggressive. So it's always tough with him, and that's what you're accounting for. You're getting plus money on the next best driver in the field in probably a better. I think the Kyle Busch truck's probably better than the Spire truck that only runs part-time. Speaking of part-time trucks, shout out to Parker Kligerman for not even making the race. Like, what? That 75 truck has got some issues this year. I'm glad we stayed away from that this week because, yikes, that's not even making the race is rough.
Yeah.
I had tossed out bonus if you could find any bets against Ross Chastain. We did talk Friday on the bonus show about Sanchez over him. That one did not hit, unfortunately. But I know I found some Corey Haim out there over Ross Chastain, which was a gift from the heavens. And there was a couple other ones out there that were pretty good in cash. So shout out to you if you found one that hit. But then for winners, I had Zane Smith 10-1. Again, talked about it. Had he qualified well, had he not had the speeding penalty, this could have been a completely different story up front. I think he could easily have run with Larson, gave him a chance. Probably maybe not beat him up head-to-head, but could have been with him. Haim at 16-1. This one looked like gold again. He led a ton of laps. Can we get stage winner odds in the Truck Series? Because I'll just bet on Haim to win the first stage every week and then fade after that, I guess. I don't know. And the Friesen 30-1 was kind of a long shot. He ended up with an okay finish, 13th, but he had his times where he was kind of up front a little bit. But I think at 30-1, worth it. We talked about the dirt guy angle in the All-Star race, right? Yeah, Friesen, dirt guy, handle the truck. But, 30-1 I feel like is always good value on a guy like that.
Yep, and the fact they finished 13th was, kind of a good for a guy 30-1. You always talk about if he finishes somewhere close to the front, then you got good value on it. So I love it. All right. And then of course I had Byron to win as well. I kind of took it just obviously thinking that 51 truck would be able to find victory lane. Unfortunately he didn't. So not for a lack of trying. I mean, he and Heim were neck and neck for that end of stage one. And Heim grabbed it from him, but I mean, whatever. I'd do it again. I think it'd be a solid bet again if you give me the same things.
And again, Larson was what, plus 105, plus 150. So again, there's that argument of, well, you just take him, but we've seen it week after week after week where these Cup guys haven't been winning this race. Again, this was the time it panned out, so hopefully you got it in if you were going to do it, because now the next couple truck races with Cup guys, they shouldn't win because if you go based on how it's been going. But I don't think this. You got Byron again. If Larson hadn't been in the race, Byron would have been that guy that was that much of a favorite. So I think he still had some value there. He had his times throughout the race where he looked okay. Never was necessarily the best truck, but that's how it'll go sometimes.
I agree. All right. Well, it's time to put North Wilkesboro back in the Rolodex as far as where we'll go again someday. We'll turn our attention, obviously, Cody, to a week of.
Oh, Rod, it's here, baby. It is
Crazy.
now officially that we're done recapping. We've got North Wilkesboro in the rear view. The front, whatever, windshield, I guess you would call it, is full of races, Rod. We have got a loaded race weekend. You got the Truck Series. You got the Xfinity Series. And then on Sunday, you wake up with F1 in Monaco. You switch over to the Indy 500, and then you change the channel one more time for the longest NASCAR race of the season, the Coca-Cola 600. Sunday is probably the best day of the year. Sorry, Christmas, move over. But yes, this is a fun week, Rod. I'm super pumped. Make sure you tune in. We're going to be back with all 5 NASCAR Gambling Podcast episodes per usual. We'll have an Xfinity episode. We'll have a truck episode. We'll have a Cup episode. Have a DFS episode. F1 Gambling Podcast, going to be an episode of that. Might even find its way into the NASCAR Gambling Podcast feed, but go over to the F1 Gambling Podcast feed, subscribe there as well for Monaco, and a special edition Indy 500 episode. Going to be a loaded week. We got some articles coming out on the site, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Make sure you get over there. It's going to be a fun week.
It's a good thing I like you, because we're going to be spending a lot of time together this week.
Hanging out a lot this week.
I love it. All right, well, then let's go ahead and turn everybody loose today. But before we do, Cody, remind them where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Husker_Zeeb. Follow the show as well at NASCAR Gambling. Make sure you get over in the Discord, sg.pn/Discord. That's an easy way to find it. Hit us up on Twitter, whatever. See new faces in there every week. We notice you guys try to interact as much as we can. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with everyone in there, which is a great thing. But yeah, it's always a good time. People talking about lines throughout the week, strategies, who we're on, who we're against, all that fun stuff. So yeah, love to see it. Get over there and join the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I echo Cody. Thank you guys for making that thing a very lively environment for folks, a welcoming environment for everybody. I got to tell you, that's your community. We get the opportunity to pop in and say hi and interact, but that's your guys' community now. You have made it your own, and we are just happy that you let us play around in there when we get a chance to jump in. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio to everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's in between media. I'm back on the back road this Thursday to talk about the Coca-Cola 600. And then, of course, check out my work for frequency's sake. But yes, full week of racing content ahead. If you're a race fan, you're going to love it. Stick with us. Until then, let's go racing and let it ride.